he sprang up at the end of the proceedings the other day because he clearly just wanted to get the hell out of there. And the judge looked at him and he was like, "Sir, could you please sit down?" And then he immediately just sank back into his seat really quickly, almost like he was a child being, chastened in a classroom or something.
It's humiliating. It's almost, you might say, like a dog being told to sit. Hey y'all, we wanted to report live from inside the Donald Trump courtroom in New York, and so we've got our friend Olivia Nuzzi to do it, but because she's in downtown Manhattan, it's audio only, so we just got this beautiful shot of her that you guys get to check out. Let's hear Olivia talk about sad Donald Trump hunched over in the courtroom up next. Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. I'm delighted to have Olivia Nuzzi back. She has been in court with Donald Trump, and so she is our, kind of informal, maybe en route to being formal correspondent from Manhattan, depending on how long things go. Alongside Ben Wittes, we have multiple correspondents because that's how on the ball we are here at the Bulwark. Olivia, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I noticed, I forget if on social media or if actually on TV, you said the words that you're feeling like David Attenborough. Was it on social media?
I am feeling like David Attenborough. It's like, I feel like I am watching a nature documentary when I'm watching Trump interact with his attorneys or react to the prosecutors or react to the judge. And all that you can really do when you're sitting there is sort of assess his body language and try and read his facial expressions and understand the dynamics of the case through what you can read from his behavior, Yeah,
I thought maybe you meant it in the sense that we all can't watch this, It's like you're reporting back from deep in the jungle.
Yeah, I mean,
to those of us who are starved for information, because we need you. We need your eyes and ears. That you've seen these, kind of animals that we've not, these creatures that we don't have access to.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, it's a crazy state of affairs that there are, there's still photography allowed in the courtroom immediately when Trump comes in and sits down. So you have some photos each day just of what he looks like sitting at that table before the jury is brought in, before the reporters are brought in. And before proceedings begin. And then you have some footage of him, entering the court when he will often speak to the press and, bitch about Tish James or about Judge Merchan or whatever else.
Or endorse Dave McCormick like he did today. That's exactly what you're looking for if you're running for Senate. Just a press conference from a defendant outside the courtroom giving you his affirmation.
And you get him, on break. Or you get him when he's leaving the court. But other than that, when it comes to what it actually looks like in there for him sitting there as a criminal defendant, as a case is being made against him, there's no documentation. There's only, a couple of reporters in the room and a couple sketch artists.
Yeah. So I want to go through the developments from the case yesterday, from Tuesday. But just, you've been in 4 days now? I mean, I'd love to hear just some broad observations. And I hear it's cold in there.
It is really
what it's
cold.
like, what his vibe is like, what the jurors, just anything that piques your observational interest.
It is really cold in there in his defense. He keeps complaining about it. He complained about it on Tuesday again when he was speaking to the press outside the courtroom. It is very cold, but it's a very old building. And when last week, I believe, when his lawyers complained and they asked if they could just raise the temperature by 1 degree, it was explained to them that no, this is an old building. If you raise it by 1 degree, it'll raise by 20 degrees and then we'll all be sweating, and you don't want that. And the first day that it was reported that he had fallen asleep, it happened to be, I believe, pretty hot in that courtroom. I wasn't there that day. So, if I were him, I'd want it to be cold so that I could stay kind of alert, But
I guess, have you seen him doze off or have you smelled him?
I have not seen him doze off. The other day, I thought for a moment I thought it looked like perhaps he was dozing off, but then I realized that actually what it seemed to be was that he was looking down at a piece of paper on the table in front of him, and you couldn't quite see that there was a piece of paper there at first because it was obscured by this screen in front of him. But it's, I don't question the judgment of any of the reporters that have said that. It's, if they're sure enough that they saw that and they feel comfortable reporting that. I certainly defer to Maggie Haberman and her judgment about that, or about anything really. So I just didn't happen to see it on Tuesday.
What about talk to me about your olfactory? How's it smelling in the courtroom?
I mean, when you're in there, so many people have asked me about this. When you're in there with the press, you're not close enough. I don't think that would that you would be aware, you would be able to confirm or deny that had occurred. But it's certainly a rumor going around.
How many people are in the courtroom? Like, what is?
I don't know. I don't know how many.
I mean, it's him and his lawyers. It's not like his family isn't there with him. He seems pretty alone.
No, his family is not in there. So when on Monday, when they were doing opening statements, and his lawyer Todd Blanche, he kind of gave this spiel to the jury, explaining, where I'm going to call him President Trump. You're going to hear him referred to as President Trump because he's earned that title, was the way that he phrased it, and he deserves to be called President Trump. And then he said, but President Trump is also a man, and he's also a husband, trying to humanize him and sort of bring him down to earth to the jury, while also making it clear that, like, this is someone who commands respect and should be respected. But when he said that, it was the first time that it actually occurred to me, wait a second, no one is here. There's no family there. Melania's not there.
That's strange.
I guess
strange. It's not strange with Donald Trump because it's Donald Trump, but it's really strange in the nature of that one would expect someone with a large family like him would have somebody who would want to attend with him. What I know you're not necessarily a legal analyst, but in this situation, I think this makes your observations actually more relevant, maybe as maybe more in the peer set with the jury. How do you assess the lawyering that's happening in the room? Like, is Todd Blanche good? Like, does he seem like a Marcia Clark situation, or are you at all compelled? Does he ever pique your interest with an argument, or?
Not yet. I mean, honestly, during his opening remarks, I was really surprised by how poorly he seemed to do. He, even just in terms of like the stagecraft of it, he kept backing away from the microphone and sort of pacing around. And when you do that, it makes it so that no one can fucking hear you.
Right.
So he kept backing away, and then the audio would kind of cut out. And his argument, it's sort of this strange thing where they're saying, okay, it's not illegal to have an NDA with someone, and it's not illegal to try to influence an election, but also no one has acknowledged whether, are they changing their mind? Did Trump actually have an affair with Stormy Daniels now? I mean,
right.
Did they have an NDA? Did they have a relationship? It's just a strange thing where it's like, nothing that he did was illegal, but also we're still not acknowledging that he did anything that he's accused of.
Yeah, I mean, where he's hiding it from his wife, but we're not telling you what he would have been hiding, right? So there's not a lot of consistency. Mitt Romney had a good quote yesterday on the trial. He said, I think everybody can make their own assessment of has made their own assessment of President Trump's character. And as far as I know, you don't pay someone $130,000 to not have sex with you.
Mitt Romney said that?
Yeah, that's what Mitt Romney said.
I can't picture him saying the word sex.
Well, he did, so let's listen to Mitt Romney.
I think everybody has made their own assessment of President Trump's character, and so far as I know, you don't pay someone $130,000 not to have sex with you.
I mean, I know he's had sex. I know he has a lot of kids, but I kind of can't imagine him saying that. But it's very strange. I keep talking to other reporters who have covered Trump for a long time, as I have, and it all began in New York. Obviously, I mean, the first time I ever spoke to Donald Trump, I was in a yellow cab in Manhattan. The first time I ever met him, I was at Trump Tower, in his office. And, I've covered him a lot in New York, but we haven't covered him in New York very much recently. He was in Washington, or he's at Mar-a-Lago or at Bedminster. He's seldom at Trump Tower. And he's kind of hasn't been a real New York character in much of the last, I don't know, 8 years. And there's something sort of disorienting about being back here, and very sad. Not that I feel sad for him, but more like just sad that this is such a pathetic state of affairs for the country.
Yeah.
There's just
Well,
something.
it's a sad scene.
It's a sad
Just,
scene.
yeah.
It's like, oh, you go from like this sort of just incredible series of events that like turn this reality TV star into the most powerful man, arguably, in the world. And I keep thinking, looking back, I guess it was inevitable that we would end up here in a criminal court.
Yes, it was. What do you think about that, and about just like the image of him as this like diminishes him or weakens him? What do you think about that?
I mean,
notion.
I don't know. I've seen him in a lot of different contexts over the years, obviously. Yeah. And I'm very rarely surprised by anything I see as it relates to him. I've seen him very angry. I've seen him dancing to the YMCA. Like, there are many Donald Trumps. And then there was something about seeing him for the first time in that courtroom, hunched over in his chair, and then, he sprang up at the end of the proceedings the other day because he clearly just wanted to get the hell out of there. And I don't blame him. I wanted to get the hell out of there too. It's really hard for me to sit still too. And I'm not, being insulted for an hour. And the judge looked at him and he was like, "Sir, could you please sit down?" And then he immediately sank back into his seat really quickly, like almost like he was a child being, chastened in a classroom or something. And there was just something about watching that just, I mean, it's really strange. It's strange to see someone who is so used to having complete autonomy and being powerful and dictating the terms of like any situation that they are in, not have the power anymore to even dictate when they stand up. It's very strange.
Yeah. It's humiliating. It's almost, you might say, like a dog being told to sit. That's interesting.
I mean, not like Commander though. I don't think, not like Joe Biden's dog.
Commander doesn't take commands like that.
No.
Okay, we have two like just the facts things we got to get through. So talk us through what happened, both with regards to the gag order and then the Pecker testimony.
So Trump has repeatedly, flagrantly violated his gag order. He has often violated that gag order while walking into the court. He has sometimes violated it on Truth Social, at least while he's in court. And basically what it seems like when you're watching the judge and the lawyers interact is just that Judge Merchan is completely fed up with Trump and his lawyers and the sort of fuckery that they are dealing in. And you can just tell that part of him is almost like amused by how ridiculous it is, and part of him is just sort of like, this is very disrespectful, and you guys are going to have to kind of find God on taking seriously my authority here as the judge in this court. And so Judge Merchan did not rule yet about the gag order. The prosecutors are asking for Trump to be fined and to be warned that if it continues, he could face jail time. But Judge Merchan did sort of say in an exasperated way to Todd Blanche, Trump's attorney, I'm going to need you, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm going to need you to make an actual legal argument. He was sort of just making the general argument that Mr. President is a candidate and he has a right to defend himself, and you cannot prevent him from commenting on things that are relevant basically to him as a presidential candidate. And Merchan seemed to think that that was not actually a substantive legal argument. And then, the first witness in this case is David Pecker, who was at AMI, American Media. And
just really quick before the Pecker on the gag order. So then we're at this point now where it's, might he get threatened with jail time? I don't.
Yeah. So the prosecutors at this point, the prosecutors are just attempting to fine him. I believe it's $1,000 for each individual violation of this gag order. And it's funny. I keep seeing people say, "Oh, well, it's $1,000. It doesn't matter to Trump." Years and years ago, Spy Magazine sent Trump a check for 13 cents as a bit, and he cashed the check. So the idea that he doesn't care about this, minor sum of money, I think is not true. I think he cares about any sum of money, and that's sort of like an integral part of his personality. But will it actually deter him from violating the gag order? No. But if they are actually going to threaten jail time, which the prosecutors say they want him to at least be threatened with that, or to have it made clear to him that he could face jail time, then maybe he'll rein himself in. But I don't know. Has he ever reined himself in?
No. This is why I kind of want them to threaten him with jail time. This is like a classic Trump. It's just like, he's going to keep pushing and pushing. But okay, well, we'll keep monitoring that. What about, so then the first witness is David Pecker. I interrupted you, but yeah, talk to us about what we heard from him.
The first witness is David Pecker. He began his testimony on Monday. At the end of the day, he spoke for a few minutes. It was funny watching, when they begin with a witness, they're adding a lot of context and, helping the jury understand who the witness is, what the witness's role in the universe is, and how the witness fits into the case. So you get a lot of details about the person and their job and how they live their life that don't directly relate to the case. And watching Trump sit there having to listen to details about someone else's life that did not immediately directly relate to him was very amusing, because he really has no tolerance for that type of thing. He can't talk about another person without it being about him, in my experience. Right. So he was sort of sitting there, he was twirling a pen around in his fingers and looking off, and he just, watching him process his own boredom has been very funny. But David Pecker basically described his place as a media executive and running the National Enquirer, and a deal that he cut with Trump and with Michael Cohen for what we now all know as a catch and kill, which is when you purchase a story from someone not with the intention to publish it, but with the intention to suppress it and keep it a secret. And Pecker described basically hatching this plot to use the National Enquirer to fabricate or exaggerate in false detail stories about Trump's rivals during the campaign in 2016. So Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and above all, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton.
Yeah, the Ted Cruz ones, it's interesting. I mean, for those, you and I were both in different kind of ways, very intimately involved in that. And it is interesting to kind of revisit all that. We all knew it was bullshit. We all knew that Trump and those guys were involved at some level. But just having the plain testimony of, oh, yeah, no, we just made up Ted Cruz's death thing. And, oh, yeah, the thing about how Ted Cruz, slept with 5 women, including somebody that used to work at the Bulwark, and, that kind of nasty, gross accusations that got put out there. Michael Cohen was getting to edit those articles even, apparently, that Pecker was sending them to him before they were publishing. I mean, it just just how debased it was and absurd and all of that, just being put out there so plainly. I don't know. Did you also have that reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, obviously, as you said, we all knew that they were involved in some way. Yeah. But just how obvious and simple it is, actually, that they were basically involved in the editing room and at the level of story conception. There's something, I don't know, there's something about it that makes me feel oh God, what an idiot I am that I thought it had to be a lot more complicated than that. Right. It's
well,
just
there was
that
a wink
simple.
And nudge thing happening. No, there's no wink and nudge. It was just, it was a straight subtle. Donald Trump deal.
Yeah, it was not subtle. It was not complicated. It was just exactly what it seemed like.
Hey, JVL, it's been months since I've seen you without a screen intermediary. I'm just dying to lick your face and put my hands on you. And so are you going to come do some public events with us and be among the people?
Human contact? Yes. Yes, I'm going to do it. I'm coming out of the house. I'm leaving the basement for 2 days. May 1st in Philadelphia and May 15th in Washington, D.C.
This will be the first Bulwark event where we encourage jeering, because it's Philly, people, so jeer us.
Yes.
May 1st.
If we have a bad show, I expect the Philly crowd to boo us.
Please. Or anyway, even if it's a good show, boo us anyway. We deserve it. May 1st in Philly, May 15th, 6 and I Synagogue in Washington, D.C. Come hang out. Go to thebulwark.com/events to get your tickets. Thebulwark.com/events and JVL. I just can't wait to get all up on you. Any other final observations from our first few days or things you're looking forward to? Are you going to be there? How much longer do you expect to ride this thing out, or what are your plans?
I mean, I plan to be there, either in or around the court as much as possible. And, I plan to be talking to as many of the people involved in the case as possible. We have a bunch of witnesses coming up. We don't know when because the prosecution has told the court that they will not be announcing witnesses ahead of time because Trump has attacked and intimidated witnesses before. So that's sort of unusual and just goes to show, how peculiar these circumstances are in this case because of Trump's inability to get a hold of himself and not attack people involved in it. But, we're expecting Michael Cohen, obviously, Hope Hicks, Stormy Daniels. There are tons
like
of
the Seinfeld finale.
Yeah, I was just going to say there are tons of familiar characters. There is a sense of this is the final season of a show and all of the story arcs are sort of crisscrossing and everyone's meeting up here in this courthouse.
God willing. Well, thank you for coming back on the pod, Olivia, and hopefully you can keep doing this and tell us what you're seeing and hearing and smelling and feeling and all of that.
Thank you for having me.